Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to continue with vocabulary. It's been a few weeks that we haven't touched on vocabulary, and vocabulary is extremely important for your real estate exam and to practice real estate. So it's like learning a new language. And this language, instead of Spanish or English or German or any other type of language, we're learning the language of real estate. So get prepared for 30 minutes to an hour to continue on with the common vocabulary words that are coming from real estate exams to help you pass your exams and understand the material. So this is Lillie Handy coming to you from San Antonio, Texas with AgentPrep. I help realtors prepare for their exam and agents and students. Sorry about that. I help students prepare and pass their real estate exam, even realtors that are preparing for their broker exam. And so remember to, I'm also added to our video, our YouTube channel, to start preparing your real estate business. So check out other YouTube videos that I am now preparing and going live on how to help you get your real estate business going right after you get your license and choose a broker. So with that said, hey, if this is your first time to my YouTube channel, remember to subscribe, click that subscribe button, ring that little bell so that you are the first one to get notified every time I go live or I upload a new video. And like this video, if it was valuable to you, comment down and let me know what kind of video you would like to watch, what I can create for you on another one, aside from preparing for the exam. So with that said, let's get going. We left off with affidavit last time, and I think that was in November. So it's important. So we're going to continue with agency today. And at any time, go ahead and comment either on YouTube or on Facebook. I am streaming this into 3 different media. Okay, so let me prepare to watch in case somebody comments. Let me open
3 different media.
Let me open up the chats on each of the channels. Not each of the channels, each of my Facebook pages and on YouTube. That way I will be able to see if you ask any questions while we are live today reviewing vocabulary. Okay, just bear with me one moment, please. So technology sometimes can be a little challenging. Hello there, Jen. How are you? Thanks for watching and learning today vocabulary, because we haven't done that in a while. Okay, so agency, the legal relationship between principal and agent that arises out of a contract wherein an agent is employed to do certain acts on behalf of the principal who has retained the agent to deal with a third party. So, and then who else is here? Martha Vargas. I'm not sure who that is. They're probably on YouTube. Okay. So remember, we're not employed by the broker. We're employed by the seller. We have an agency relationship, meaning we owe our fiduciary responsibility to our duties, okay, to the seller, the principal, the owner of the real estate property. If it is on a buyer, then we would be signing a sales contract or a buyer's rep agreement, right? Once we have something signed, we are their agent. We have an agency relationship. If there's no agency relationship, meaning there is nothing signed, that person is a customer, not a client. So legal relationship between a principal, being the seller, the buyer, the landlord, the tenant, investor, owner, and agent that arises out of what? A contract. That contract could be a listing agreement, a sales contract, or a buyer's rep agreement, or a commercial real estate contract. All right. Now, and then, and that's who has retained the agent to deal with a third party. So we're not employed again by the brokerage. All the transactions belong to the broker, but we are representing the principal on behalf in association with the broker. And that principal has retained us. And we don't represent the third party, we represent the primary. All right, agent. So who's the agent? We are, right? Now, we are also called realtors. Okay, so once we join the National Association of Realtors, the Texas Association of Realtors, and the local MLS, we are realtors. So we are, we have a better reputation, and we are professionals. And that requires that we pay yearly dues. As an agent, you may not be a member of all those. So we're not per se a realtor, we're an agent. However, we most all refer to ourselves as agents. Okay. So an agent is one who has granted the authority to act on behalf of another. So our broker has granted us the authority to act on behalf of another. And who's that another? Buyer, seller, tenant, landlord, investor, any of those. Agreement of sale, a written agreement, okay? A written agreement between a seller and a purchaser, whereby the purchaser agrees to buy a certain piece of property from the seller for a specified price. So that is the resale contract, new construction contract, unimprovement contract for land, condominium contract, all these different types of written agreements is between a seller, the owner, and a principal, and the purchaser, buyer, also a principal, right? When they're represented by an agent. So the contract is between the seller and the buyer. We do not sign a contract. Only the seller and the buyer sign an agreement of sale, which is a purchase and sale agreement, which could be the 1-to-4 family residential contract, the resale, or any of the above types of contracts. The main one that you're studying, and I created another video on the 1-to-4 real estate contract, family contract. So I recommend that you highly go and view that one. I did it just a few days ago so that you can understand the contract and what information within the contract you're going to be asked questions for. Okay. So it was actually, I said it wasn't going to be in detail, but it's in really, really detail. Okay. Next, air rights. Air, right? Anything above us, air rights. Are y'all having problems with internet? Because for some reason mine are frozen. Hopefully you can see this. If you can, would you type something in the comments and let me know? All right, air rights. So the right to use the open space above a particular property. So, sky risers, apartment complexes, skyscrapers, any type of building, there is airspace above. And the owners of those buildings can have air rights and lease those rights to somebody else, or prevent anyone like airplanes to go over them, at a certain height. So they can lease the air rights just like you can lease land. So there's land rights and there's air rights. So there is the air on the earth level and below the earth. So those are the three areas where a property can be, is above in the air, on the surface of the earth, and below the surface of the earth. Alienation. So you got an alien, but that's not what it is, right? Alienation, the transfer of ownership of a property to another, either voluntarily or involuntarily. So remember that alienation, it's voluntary or involuntary. It's the seller that's transferring ownership of a property. They're alienating it. They're getting rid of it. They're selling it. They're conveying it to somebody else. Alienation can also be tenants that abandon the apartment. They're alienating the apartment. When you alienate a person, right, you're getting rid of them. You're getting rid of that relationship. The seller is getting rid of the property. They're transferring it to somebody else. Alienation clause. The clause in a mortgage or deed of trust that permits the lender to declare all unpaid principal and accrued interest due and payable if the borrower transfers title to the property. So in the state of Texas and central states to the east, we use a deed of trust. I'm sorry. Central to east are mortgages. Central to west are pretty much deed of trust. With a deed of trust, the difference between the mortgage and the deed of trust, where the alienation clause is included, is how it can be foreclosed. Okay? A judicial foreclosure, which would be for a mortgage, meaning you got to go to a banker. You got to go to a judge to give approval to foreclose, or a deed of trust, non-judicial, no judge. Okay, so no judges needed. The instructions on the trustee to perform a foreclosure is all specified, okay, in the deed of trust. The deed of trust is recorded, the mortgage is recorded, right? Just like the warranty deed or special warranty deed is recorded. Promissory note, not recorded. That's part of the deed of trust of the mortgage whenever there is a lender involved. Okay, so that alienation clause, okay, if anyone is selling, right? Alienation to transfer. Alienation clause is a clause within the deed of trust that if the lender finds out that the owner has transferred title, they may expedite, okay, accelerate that loan and say, hey, you've got 30 days to pay it off. So all principal accrued interest would be due ASAP within a date that they give them. Allodial system. In the United States, a system of land ownership in which land is held free and clear of any rent or services due to the government, and commonly contrasted with the feudal system in which ownership is held by a monarch. So hi, for all of you who just showed up, we're reviewing vocabulary today. Hi, Jen. Hi, Sandy. And hi, MC Trevino. Yes, this is actually for national. It can be for any license, Texas or all 50 states, because we're covering only vocabulary today. So the vocabulary is covered in all 50 states. So good question, MC. Okay, can you make a video on agency? Okay, I may consider doing that on Saturday. Thank you for that. Who was that? Sandy and Kevin, thank you. All right. So, the feudal system, more known in Europe, right? In which the ownership was held by a large monarch. So they owned a lot of land and they owned it free and clear of any rents and services. to the government. Okay. Amenities. So, but that feudal system is also in the United States known as a allodial system. Okay. Amenities. Features or benefits of a particular property that enhance the property's desirability and value, such as scenic view or a pool. Like when you go to a hotel or you go to a resort, you want certain amenities, right? Oh, hi, Mary. Okay, your name is Mary, MC Trevino, Mary Trevino. Thank you for that. So, it's amenities that you get with your property like you would at a resort, at a hotel, or somewhere else you go, at restaurants. These are features and benefits of a particular property, okay, that enhances the property's desirability and value. You could be by a river, a pool, a pond, a lake, close to the ocean. All of those locations increases the value of a property. A pool does too, not as much, of course, as a lake, a pond, a river, or the ocean. However, it does increase the value of a property. They make great investments, more expensive, but great investments. Amortization. So I'm just looking. Hi, Rosario. I'm just seeing if anybody has any questions. Okay, no questions on Facebook, no questions there. Okay, very good. Continuing on. Amortizations. By the way, I did another video on, it was either Texas or national, that I also talked about amortization. Another student asked about amortization, and it's discussed in one of the videos. So amortization is the method of repaying a loan or debt by making periodic installment payments. So like every month, a 30-year loan would have 360 month payments. So it's every month. Others, it depends on who the seller is. They could say, hey, give me a payment every 6 months or every 3 months, whatever is agreed upon between the owner, the seller, or the lender. But typical loans amortization schedule is 30 years, 15 years, or others if they are an adjustable rate mortgage. So then those payments are made every month. The principal of the interest is the same. When all principal has been repaid, it is considered fully amortized. So the owner, the borrower, will get pages and pages of 360 months itemized of every principal payment, interest payment, and what the balance is. Now, this does not include the taxes and insurance, because taxes and insurance can change every year. Taxes can go up, homeowners insurance can go up. So the monthly payment on a mortgage or deed of trust could change the next year. What does not change, it stays the same, is the principal and interest, unless it's refinanced. Okay, so the principal and interest, it's what this periodic installment payments are on the amortization schedule. You can always go back to those sheets. You can go online to bankrate.com or other websites that are for the banks and look up amortization schedule. And there are calculators where, you can determine what your monthly payment would be, 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Because at the beginning of these amortized payments, installment payments, it's more interest than principal. However, today the interest rates are really low, right? We were down to the mid 2s and we're now in the 3s. So it's a very small percentage that's going to interest, but typically more money goes towards the interest and principal. As time goes on, the amount that goes towards the principal is larger and the interest is smaller until the interest gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the majority is going to principal. The amortization schedule is that table that I mentioned that shows 360 months of payments or 180 months of payments if it's 15 years. So that shows how much of each loan payment will be applied towards the principal, as I mentioned, and how much toward interest over the whole lifespan of the loan. It also shows the gradual decrease of the outstanding loan balance, okay, until it reaches zero. Now, we all know that today, compared to our parents, our grandparents, people move around a lot. So we never totally pay off, the 30 years or 15 years. So you're going to encounter individuals, buyers that get fearful and say, nah, man, I don't want to have a 15-year loan. I don't want to have 30-year loan, man, paying this darn house. It's going to cost like crazy. Well, it's our job to explain how that works. And that's why it's important for us to know all these vocabularies and understand the vocabulary, the language of real estate, because we will have to educate and help our buyers and sellers understand this. People move around a lot. I have moved around, 20, 30 times in my life, different states, different cities, different homes within the same city. So, however, I didn't own back then, right? I rented. But every time we buy, we might stay there 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Now, my family, a lot of them have been there 30 years, right? The younger generation, we move a lot. Okay, amortize. So that was the schedule, right? The amortize to repay a loan through regular payments that are comprised of principal and interest. Okay, so amortization is the periodic installment payments, which are composed of both principal and interest. The amortization schedule is a table of all the payments. To amortize it is to repay the loan in regular payments of just principal and interest. So the loan is amortized and a schedule is created. Annual percentage rate. Know this also, APR. So the interest rate that we are charged on a loan is what's the going interest rate. However, once all the cost of sale or cost to purchase is added on to the loan, then the interest rates goes up. So all the closing costs that are allowed, okay, and added to the loan calculation for the interest rate brings the interest rate. So let's say the loan is for $500,000, but the closing costs were $10,000. So you'll have interest rate for the $500,000, and they add the $10,000 and recalculate the interest rate. That becomes the annual percentage rate, which will be a little bit higher. Okay, so that's the total or effective amount of interest charged on a loan expressed as a percentage on a yearly basis, right? Annual percentage rate. This value is created according to a government formula intended to reflect the true annual cost of borrowing. So the true annual cost of borrowing included loan fees and other closing costs. The normal interest rate does not. Okay, any questions? Nope. Rosaura is here. Okay. Antideficiency law. Against deficiency law. So laws used in some states to limit the claim of a lender on default on payment of a purchase money mortgage on owner occupied, I'll get back to it, Sandy. Owner occupied residential property to the value of the collateral. So back in 2005 through 2012, where a lot of people were losing their homes because the market crashed, then the government came up with a Mortgage Relief Debt Act of 2007 to help those individuals that were behind or default on their payment. And if they were foreclosed on or a pre-foreclosure was done, that they would not have to pay the difference because the property values had increased, yet so their loans were higher. However, the market crashed. So now the value of the property was a lot lower, And no matter how much they sold it today, it would not cover the loan balance. So they had a deficiency. The government protected a lot of consumers that were residential owner occupied so that they would be forgiven for that debt that wouldn't be recovered when the home was sold. So the loan was for 500,000, and yet the value of the property was 300,000. And so they had a loan balance maybe of 400,000. So now there's still 100,000 that's owed to the lender. The government came up with the 2000 Mortgage Relief Act in order to allow individual help the economy, help individuals not have to pay that money back, but only on primary residences. Okay, so Sandy has asked, don't understand the APR, annual percentage rate. So the interest rate that you see advertised by lenders, or you look up, what's today interest rate? Okay, it could be 3.5. So that's the interest rate for the loan to determine what the monthly principal and interest payment is going to be. However, on the good faith estimate, or let's say a preliminary estimate that a lender provides to a buyer, will have another interest rate that's a little bit higher called the annual percentage rate. Okay, it's based on the annual interest. So as you see here, it's based on a yearly basis, created according to a government formula intended to reflect the true annual cost of borrowing. And the true cost of borrowing means they had to pay additional cost in order to purchase, in order to get the lender to loan them that money. So it costs money to borrow money. Okay, and we have to cover that cost. We get to write off certain costs, okay, when purchasing, but not all of them. So the current market value interest rate is not the annual percentage rate. Okay, the annual percentage rate is a little bit larger, including the true cost of borrowing together with the loan. So if you've ever bought a home, you're going to have interest rate 3.5, annual percentage rate 3.875 or 4. Let's say you also purchased a buy down. So you paid money in order to get a lower interest rate, but that also adds to the cost of the annual percentage rate. It adds to the cost of borrowing. Okay, so in the 30 years or the 15 years, you have a fixed interest rate, 3.5%. But the loan, the cost for borrowing that was actually a little bit higher. And so that's where that annual, it's based on the annual, on the year rate, okay, not on the monthly interest charge, even though it's calculated on 365 days. Or 360. Some states use 365, others use 360. So it depends on what state you're in. You'll want to look that up. I think here in Texas, we're on 365 days. Okay, so it's your interest rate, principal and interest with the true cost of borrowing that money. So it's just a formula the government uses because you know what? We have got to pay for everything. But we also get write-offs. Okay, that's why it's good to own investment properties, because we get to write off the property taxes, we get to write off all the expenses, property management, property insurance, anything that is operation cost for that property, we get to write it off. On our personal property, no, only the taxes. Okay, on the primary residence. All the other expenses, we don't get to write off. That's why people invest in real estate. So it's like the best place to invest money. When you go back and you research millionaires, what do they own? Real estate. One of the biggest burger drive-through businesses, McDonald's. They're rich in land. Pay attention to where McDonald's has all their drive-throughs. Corners. right? In main roads, prime property. They sometimes search their feasibility studies to where they want, and then other businesses want to be close to them. Other businesses want to be close to McDonald's, to Walmart or Target. You'll see certain businesses all conglomerated together, right? And they own land. Sometimes they have more money in the land that they own than they do in the product that they sell. So McDonald is rich in land. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so I explained antideficiency law. So that law in some states to limit the claim of a lender on a default on payment. And this happens more on foreclosures when there's a drop in the market, a crash on the market. Antitrust laws. Laws designed to protect free enterprise and the open marketplace by prohibiting certain business practices that restrict competition. So we don't want a monopoly. Okay. So if you're ever around somebody that's talking about trying to fix the commission rate between a whole bunch of you, walk away. That would be considered a monopoly. We don't do that. Antitrust is to protect against prohibiting competition. We don't restrict competition. So in reference to real estate, these laws would prevent such practices as price fixing, commission fixing, or agreements by brokers to limit their areas of trade. So it's important to know the laws. You might think a lot of this stuff is bull crap. You don't need to know it. It'll hit you when you least expect it. You need to know it and understand it. We're not attorneys to be explaining this to our clients, okay, to sellers and buyers, investors. That's why we say recommend that you go to an attorney. Okay, so antitrust, right? Against, okay, we need laws where we can trust the economy to provide competition. No price fixing, no monopolies. Apportionments, adjustment of income, expenses, or carrying charges related to real estate, usually computed to the date of closing so that the seller pays all expenses to the date of closing, and then the buyer pays all expenses beginning on the closing date and thereafter. So property taxes are prorated, right, to the closing date. Seller pays to the closing date. The buyer pays from the next day forward. So the seller pays for their portion of the taxes for this year. So right now, we're in the middle of January. So the seller would pay, if it closes tomorrow, the seller would pay taxes for 2022 from January to what's tomorrow, the 20th. And the buyer gets that credit, so that when their taxes are due next year, they pay the whole year. But the seller already paid the first few days, the first 20 days. So those are the adjustments of income, expenses, HOAs, what are other things? Deposits, any charges related to real estate, computed to the day of closing. They're prorated. Appraisal. So any questions so far? I don't see anybody typing anything, so I'm looking on all. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, so for anybody who just came in, we're reviewing vocabulary that applies to all 50 states. The vocabulary, which is the language of real estate. All right, continuing on. Appraisal. An estimate or opinion of the value of an adequately described property as of a specific date. So you see, it says described property. Every property has a property description. It's not the address, okay? Because the address could be potentially wrong. The description could be a lot and block, a subdivision, a certain area of the city. That is a legal description on how an appraiser will know that they're appraising the right property. So they get the legal description from the agent or from the title company, usually from the agent, they'll get a copy of the contract, and it'll have the legal description on there. And then that legal description identifies that particular property. Every property has one legal description. So the appraiser, right, is going to estimate or opinion of value with other similar properties of same square footage, land size, bedrooms. It's more important the square footage. And then if it has more bathrooms are more expensive. But anyway, we go into that. So they have to compare in detail. If one house has 3 bathrooms and the other one only has 2, they're going to deduct one bathroom from this one to come up with a price for the similar property, the subject property that's being appraised. If the subject property has more garages, then they'll deduct the garages from the other property. It's a big, long process. So the appraisers are more detailed. What we as realtors do, we also do an estimate or opinion, but it's a comparable analysis, right? Where we look at properties on our multiple listing service that have sold within the last 6 months or 3 months or for 1 month, depending on how fast the market is moving, and that are similar in square footage and lot size and age. So we compare them with age, lot size, and square footage of the property, and on square footage, it's give or take plus or minus 300. On the year, it's plus or minus 500. Learn that from appraisers, and you will learn that on the business too. So that appraisal is for a specific date. Okay, keyword. It's an estimate or opinion of a property, a particular property based on the legal description and on a specific date. Okay, the appraised value is an opinion of that property's fair market value, today's market value, based on an appraiser's knowledge, experience, and analysis of the property based on comparable sales. You're saying, well, what's the difference between an appraiser's appraisal, comparable sales compared to ours? Theirs are more detailed. They've got to take pictures of all the properties, contact realtors, find out if they were sold by cash, loan, FHA, VA. So they have to look at a lot of different things that we may not. It is more detailed and it's a longer process. So it's a value of the current fair market's value. You might have 2 appraisers, 3 appraisers, and they all come up with different values, maybe a little similar, but still different. Just as realtors, when we do our comparative market analysis, we may come up with different values. And then it's for us to justify how we came up with that value to the seller or to the buyer. The appraiser, the person who does the appraisal and comes up with the appraised value. And who is licensing an appraiser? Is it the real estate agency? No. Okay. Like in Texas Real Estate Commission does not license appraisers. Put it in your brain. Appraisers are with the real estate agency board, licensing board. Appraisers are by themselves. So the realtors, agent, salespersons, brokers, realtor, salesperson, same difference, right? Brokers, property management, easement individuals, and let's see what else. Oh, and inspectors. Those are all licensed by the real estate commissions of every state. Appraisers, are all by themselves, right? Do not question why I always see national portion practice in prep, but no state portion. There's a reason. Oh, actually, Ruth, I've done a lot of Texas state. However, since I'm in Texas, I only do Texas. Go back to my YouTube channel and you're going to see tons of Texas State Practice Prep. Okay. Recently, I've done less national. Okay. And I hadn't done vocabulary in a long time. So go back into the YouTube videos and see Texas exam prep, Texas questions, more Texas questions, 2022 Texas questions, Texas real estate questions. Okay, Ruth, lots of them on there. However, I can only do Texas because I am licensed in Texas. Okay. So in other states, you typically will have to buy a book or somebody's sources unless they're doing something similar to me in another state. But for my channel, when I do a state question, it is for Texas only. National questions, all 50 states. Vocabulary, all 50 states. You can find lots of YouTube channels, lots of free material out there for national and vocabulary. It's the same. It's the state laws that is different for every state. Okay, appraiser appreciation. So what time is it? 6:41. Okay, I'm going to do 3 more vocabulary and we'll call it a night. Appreciation. Appreciate is an increase in the market value of a property. So you buy a property today, or let's say we bought a property 2 years ago. During COVID, there have been tons and tons of sales. You would think, why are people buying during COVID? Well, because the interest rate is extremely low and people still need housing. And we can do so much virtually on the cloud, right? Like I'm with EXP, I'm a cloud-based business company. So the properties have appreciated almost like 10, 15% a year because people are offering way above list price because there are not enough homes on the market. If no new homes would be put on the market right now, our inventory would finish in about a month and a half or a month and a quarter. When there's very few properties on the market, the value of properties increase. Supply and demand. So the properties appreciate. The market value of that property increases, even if we didn't do anything to it, because the demand is there. Pertinence. Something that transfers with the title to the land. Okay. It moves with the land. Like the cows move. That's what Joe Juder says. Moves with the land. It's attached to the land. So something that transfers with the title to land, even if it is not an actual part of the property. Okay. It could be an easement that belongs to another property. That easement transfers with that property because you have the servient party and you have the dominant party. So a pertinent, something that transfers with the title to land, even if it is not an actual, okay, a material fact part of the property, such as an easement. Okay, there are wells, septic systems that might be on the joint owner, utility easements, a river frontage easement, ocean easement access, an easement for somebody to walk through your property. So these are attached to the property and they transfer with it. Any kind of easement has to be recorded in order to transfer with the title to that land. Okay, the last word of tonight, vocabulary keywords, arbitration. So arbitration is the process of settling a dispute, right, in which the parties submit their differences to an impartial third party on whose decision on the matters is binding. Okay, so in the contract, okay, or a listing agreement, you'll see if there is any dispute, any differences between the principal and the real estate office, our first goal is to resolve issues amongst us, amongst realtors and brokers, among realtors and clients and realtors and brokers. Okay. If that does not work, then there is mediation. So if you watch the video that I did on the 2022 real estate resale contract, which is the 1 to 4 family, it has a section there on mediation. So it's part of the contract. If mediation, so in mediation, there's a third party that is helping both sides come to a decision, an agreement. That third party in mediation does not make a decision. It asks questions to both sides. That doesn't work. Then the arbitration listens to both sides and will make a decision. Okay, and they're an impartial third party. So the decision is binding from that arbitrator. Whether the two parties agree or not, it's gotten to that point to where somebody else had to make the decision. Okay, and that is arbitration. So we go with the process of elimination. Resolve amongst ourselves first. Because as realtors, as brokers, lenders, everybody, we need to respect each other and work together. We're in this business together. Yes, it's competition, but really we should be competing with ourselves, not with somebody else. Compete with ourselves to become better and do better. So first within ourselves, then mediation, and then arbitration. Okay? So any questions? I hope this was valuable today, because vocabulary is the language of real estate. Very crucial. I mean, look at the types of words you're going to be dealing with. Appurtenances on a property, appreciation, appraiser. So if you're an investor, you're going to, want appreciations and depreciation for taxes. The appraiser, the appraised value. Clients will ask us that. Buyers who are customers will ask us that. Remember, we owe fairness and honesty to everyone, but we owe our fiduciary duties to a client. And who is a client? Someone that signs an agreement with the broker. A principal that signs an agreement with the broker brings an agency agreement, and we represent them, and that's who we owe our fiduciary duties. Okay, let's see. I don't see any questions. No questions? Well, awesome. This was an awesome class. Lots of vocabulary. So next time we'll continue on with Arello. Know your acronyms too. Association of Real Estate Licensed Law Office. Okay. So go back to my YouTube channel, review Texas state questions and answers, national questions and answers, vocabulary, and I have begun to post videos on, what happens next after you pass your license and what to expect, okay, and about how to select a real estate broker, questions to ask, and things like that. So if you're on my YouTube channel or you're not there, you haven't visited, hey, go to my YouTube channel, YouTube AgentPrep, subscribe to my channel, okay? Tap the subscribe button, then click that little bell so that you get notified every time I upload and post a new video. I'm going live on most all the videos, okay, that I'm doing. And like this video, if it was valuable, you learned something valuable on this video, okay? YouTube promotes our videos when we have people like us, listen to our videos, watch them, subscribe to them. So send me some love, all right? Says Jen, thank you for your time. Stay warm tomorrow. Oh, yes, we're having a winter blast, right? Yes, we are. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And I've got a mastermind Zoom call tonight, actually on social media and YouTube learning. So until next time, catch y'all later. Bye.